Crypto airdrops may be one of the best chances you have of earning life-changing money in 2024 and beyond. But farming different airdrops can be a very complicated and time-consuming process. And so to make it easier for myself and also now for you, I have created a complete Ethereum ecosystem airdrop farming checklist. Now, I've also created a Solana checklist, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to walk you through how to complete the Ethereum ecosystem airdrop checklist. So I'm going to show you my exact workflow and how I go through this. Now, it's important to note here that you can do this as often as you like, depending on how ambitious you want to be. I recommend doing something similar to this at least monthly so that you can establish an on-chain transaction history over a long period of time. If you have enough time and energy to come back and repeat this weekly, then that's probably even better. Now, the thing about the Ethereum ecosystem is that it's quite complicated because not only are there a huge number of different apps and protocols that you want to interact with in order to possibly get those protocol airdrops, but then there's also all of the different layer 2s, many of which will be releasing a token, if not in 2024, then probably in the next year or two. And that means in order to fully complete this checklist, you need to do many of these different activities on each of the different L2s that you're trying to farm their airdrops for. Now, this takes a long time, and that's why it's much more feasible to do this over the course of, say, a month, and then put little check marks when you complete a task in each different section. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to walk through one L2. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete all of these ones here because I am simply going to walk through the ZK Sync L2 and show you how I do it with one network. And then you can apply that exact same process to all of the different other networks. Don't worry, I didn't actually delete the real checklist. I just copy pasted a different one for the purposes of this video. Why ZK Sync? Well, it's one of the largest L2s. It's a ZK layer 2 Ethereum rollup. So it's different than Arbitrum and Optimism. It has a huge amount of funding and it hasn't released a token yet. And so I think of all of the L2s, this is definitely one of the better targets. And so this video might be a little bit on the longer side, but if you stick with me and follow along, then I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to hit not only a ZK Sync airdrop, but also probably a number of other airdrops from the different apps and protocols that we're going to interact with. Now, in the first column here, this is the list of apps and protocols, and I have split them up into their different types or segments. And the first one is bridges, because before we can actually do any transactions on ZK Sync, we need to, of course, have some funds on that layer 2 network. Now, I do already have some ETH and some USDC on ZK Sync, but what you would do is simply select a network and then bridge to ZK Sync. I'll show you actually one example. This app here, Bungee, is a great one because by interacting with it, you can qualify for the Bungee airdrop potentially, an L2 airdrop when we bridge to and from different L2s, and also a layer 0 airdrop because that is the protocol that powers this bridge. Now, there's two ways that you can use Bungee. You can actually make a proper transfer or a bridge transaction, or you can use their refuel feature, which is super convenient. And it means that you can send a small amount of cryptocurrency between different networks, and they call it refuel because you're supposed to be able to use that small amount of crypto to pay for gas fees or transaction fees on the network that you're sending it to. So to use this, let's say I want to bridge or refuel a small amount of crypto from the Polygon network to ZK Sync. I would select where I'm transferring from and where I'm transferring to, and then I would select the refuel amount. So the minimum amount that I can refuel is 2.35 Matic, which works out to just under $2. And there's also a fee for doing this. And honestly, throughout this whole process, you'll notice that you have to pay a decent amount in fees every time you make a transaction. But the objective here is to qualify for enough airdrops that we make 10x or 100x what we spend in fees for these transactions when we actually get those airdrops in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and refuel this small amount from Polygon to ZK Sync, hit on the refuel button, and then confirm the transaction in my wallet. Now, that could take a couple of seconds or maybe even a minute to go through, but I can go back to the checklist here and then put a little check mark saying that I've completed this for the ZK Sync process. Now, you could also put a check mark if you bridge out from ZK Sync. That's totally up to you how you want to approach this. Now, actually, I don't recommend using the across bridge because they already launched their token, but a number of these different bridges have not yet launched tokens. So for example, Al2 Finance is one of the bridges that you could use, and they have a points system where when you make bridge transactions, you earn points. So you're probably going to want to bridge to and from each of the different layer 2 networks that you're trying to farm their airdrops at least once a month, I would say. And I would also spread my transactions out amongst the different bridges. So let's say I introduced another layer 2 into this checklist. Well, if I was going to make a bridge, then after I finished doing all of the ZK Sync tasks, then I could bridge to Linea. Well, instead of using Bungee or Al2, I would use maybe the Stargate bridge, for example. And that way I could get check marks for all of these different protocols. And actually in column D, you'll notice that for some of these dApps or protocols, you can qualify for multiple airdrops by transacting with them. So for example, with the Stargate bridge, you can potentially qualify for a layer 0 airdrop, but also for the L2 airdrops that you're transacting on. Another good one is Jumper. You can qualify for layer 0, Li-Fi, and the L2s. So any protocol where you can actually farm multiple airdrops with one single transaction is also definitely a good target. Anyways, it looks like my bridge on Bungee has successfully gone through. So let's move on now to the next step of the checklist, which is to interact with a bunch of different decentralized exchanges and DeFi platforms. So let's start with SyncSwap, which is one of my favorite targets, especially when it comes to ZK Sync, because you can qualify for the ZK Sync airdrop and also the SyncSwap airdrop. So I'll open it up here, and all of these apps are actually linked in blue. So if you're using this checklist yourself, you can simply click on the button and open up the app. Now, when it comes to SyncSwap, there's a few different things that you can do. So one thing I would come back and do at least once a month is to make some swaps. So for example, I can swap between ETH and USDC. So let's go ahead and make a quick swap here. The transaction fee is going to cost me a couple of cents. So I'll just confirm that. And that swap is going through. Now, another thing that you can do with SyncSwap, if you have enough liquid capital, is to deposit into their liquidity pool. So let's hit on this and open it up. The way that liquidity pools work are you basically loan your crypto assets out to SyncSwap in the liquidity pool. In exchange for that, you get an APR yield, and then those pools are used to facilitate swaps in the trading feature. So if you want to, you can make a deposit into a liquidity pool on SyncSwap, and that will generate another transaction for you on the ZK Sync network, as well as get you points for a potential SyncSwap airdrop. So let's take a look at the most basic liquidity pool, which is always the ETH USDC pool. And I can make a deposit into this pool if I hit on this, hit enter, and then I can choose how much I want to deposit. Now I can deposit assets in balanced proportion, equal amount, or one-sided. So if I want to make a deposit of 10 USDC to this liquidity pool, I can select that, hit on deposit, and then it will pop up in my MetaMask asking me to confirm the transaction. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, that transaction was confirmed. I actually got refunded a decent amount of the gas, which is another reason why I really like SyncSwap, is because they're doing gas refunds on ZK Sync. So it costs a lot less than it said it would. And if I go look at my position, you can see that it split that 10 USDC I deposited into equal amounts USDC and ETH. So I have basically $10 worth of liquidity in this pool, earning me fees over time. And whenever I want to, I can come hit withdraw. But the important thing to note with liquidity is that the longer that you provide it for and the more that you provide, the better off you'll be, basically. So going back to the checklist here, I can now put a check mark beside SyncSwap. I did a swap and I provided liquidity. And if you're following along with this checklist, it's the swaps that you need to do on a regular basis. The provision of liquidity is not something that you need to come back and do again and again. It's more so the value that you're providing and the length of time that you provide it for. So you could make one transaction and hold it in SyncSwap for 3 months or 6 months, and that would be much more worthwhile than if you came back every week and made a tiny deposit. And on the SyncSwap portfolio tab, you can track your assets and you can see your transaction history. So just remember, if you make a deposit into a liquidity pool, that you did make a deposit so that you can remember to come back and withdraw it at some point. Now, going back to the checklist here, I am not going to go through every single DEX here because a lot of them are very similar and the tasks that you have to complete are very similar. So swapping and providing liquidity, for example. But one thing I will say is that you probably don't want to swap from ETH to USDC and then back to ETH and vice versa. You probably want to rotate through some different assets and spread it out over some different protocols. But now that I've finished with SyncSwap, I would move on to another DEX. So let's say Mute, and then I would swap from USDC to another third asset. So that's how I play this portion of it. Instead of just swapping back and forth, I would then select USDC, and then I could swap my USDC for something like wrapped Bitcoin. So let's say I swap the full amount. I would hit approve, confirm another transaction in my wallet. And here we're just generating volume and transaction history. So that transaction was confirmed. I swapped into wrapped Bitcoin, and it only cost me 22 cents because these guys are also doing gas fee refunds on zkSync. So now I can go back to the checklist and check off yet another protocol. And so in the course of a month, I would try to hit as many of these as possible. You don't have to do them all in one day. In fact, in some cases, maybe it's better if you spread it out a little bit. That way it looks a little bit more natural and it doesn't look like you're a bot or a Sybil just trying to game the airdrop. And also, of course, if you're farming multiple L2s, then you can spread out the different DEXs across the different L2s. So some of these actually you can't even transact on with zkSync. For example, Ambient is only on Scroll. So if I was farming Scroll, then I would only be able to put a check mark for the Scroll column on this row. Anyways, that's how it works with the DEXs. You swap and you provide liquidity to as many as you can afford to if you have enough capital to allocate towards that. Moving on down, the next section of this is the DeFi section. And so this is where you can lend out assets, you can borrow assets, and you can take LP tokens and yield farm them. Now for zkSync, a lot of these are actually not available, so they're more applicable if you're farming different L2s. However, there are some DeFi platforms that we can loan out crypto assets on. For example, Lend. So maybe I'll actually add this into the checklist. But this is an app where we can connect our wallet and then actually loan out some crypto assets. So we're just creating different types of transactions that will increase our chances of actually qualifying for airdrops. Now, currently, there's not a whole lot of options. You can actually only loan out ETH and USDC on the platform, but you can actually also borrow those assets once you make a deposit of collateral. So let's say I hit manage, and I'm going to supply some ETH to this. Let's just supply a small amount, just over $10 worth. Then I want to select the use as collateral button, and I have to confirm a transaction. Then I hit supply, so I'm providing this collateral to the platform, confirm another transaction. Okay, that was successful, and I got another gas refund, which is nice. So now I've supplied some assets to the platform, and that is earning a supply APY of 0.19%. However, I can actually also borrow now that I've supplied. So if I go to USDC and hit manage, I could hit borrow, and then I could select how much I want to borrow. So let's say, for example, I wanted to borrow $5, whatever. I could select the amount, hit on the borrow button, and then confirm that transaction. Now, the thing to note is that if you are borrowing or using leverage in any of these cases, you need to be careful to make sure that you have enough to pay back the interest and that your position doesn't get liquidated. So the health of the loan needs to stay reasonably high. You don't really want to borrow against the full amount that you have. For example, I wouldn't borrow against 80% of the limit. I would borrow much less than that just to be safe. Because if the price of ETH were to go down relative to the value of my loan, then it could be liquidated. So yeah, let's actually add this in, and I'll make sure that I add it into the actual public checklist that is live right now as well. So we've done now swaps and liquidity provision, and we've made a loan and borrowed crypto assets if we've done all of these things. So we keep moving down the list. And the next couple ones are dev activities. So these ones are interesting because you can deploy smart contracts just by using these platforms that have preset copy-paste contracts. So it's a completely different type of transaction for your wallet, and it makes it look like you're actually an Ethereum developer on zkSync, which is cool. So let's open up Merkly, because Merkly is an application that we can use to deploy a basic contract for about 31 cents. You can also deploy an ERC20 token for 250, but I'll show you how you can do that on Third Web for much less. So let's deploy a basic contract. Select the network, and you can do this on all of these different layer 2s, and then you simply hit deploy. Pops up in your wallet, asking you to sign the transaction. And then all you have to do at this point is hit this button that says increase counter, and it costs you a couple of cents to do this, but you have now actually deployed a simple smart contract and interacted with it. And it's basically just a counting contract. So you just set it from 0 to 1. Now going back to the checklist, we would check that off. And third web is actually an even better way that you can establish sort of like a dev presence with your wallet, because here they have these copy paste smart contracts that you can deploy with a couple of clicks. And this one right here, token, is what we're going to do, because you can actually deploy an ERC20 token and mint tokens and burn them and send them to other wallets. It's pretty cool. So once you connect to third web, hit on the token button and then hit up here where it says deploy now. And this is where you have to choose a name for your token and a symbol. You can upload an image if you want to. It's not necessary. So let's call this the airdrop farming token, and the token symbol will be farm. I'm gonna skip the upload image because it's not necessary, but once you fill in the mandatory fields, you scroll down, select the network that you want to deploy the contract to. So obviously in this case, we're doing ZK Sync. Then simply hit deploy now. Oh, by the way, the primary sale recipient, just put your own wallet address. That's where the actual tokens that you mint are gonna go to. So hit deploy now. And you have to confirm this once again in your wallet. And once you deploy the contract, there's a second transaction to add it to your dashboard, which is gasless. Then it brings us to this here, which is the dashboard. And down here, you'll see this button that says head to the token tab. So hit that, and this is where you can actually mint some tokens. So I'm gonna mint some farm tokens. Let's say I'm gonna mint, what is that? 10 million farm tokens, sure. So once you select the supply, hit the mint button, and confirm a transaction in your wallet. Again, pay a couple of cents, but that's okay. If I open up the MetaMask wallet, actually, we can see that a lot of these transactions cost, that last one was 8 cents. This one here was 12 cents. So the price that's quoted in MetaMask is usually way higher than what you actually pay. This one was 23 cents. But look at all those beautiful transactions and transaction history that we're creating, interacting with all of these different dApps and protocols. So now that I have minted some tokens, I can burn them, airdrop them, or transfer them. So if I wanted to burn, I could say burn one token, hit the burn button, and then confirm another transaction in my wallet. So you can interact with the smart contract a couple of times, but once you've done that, back to the checklist and put a check mark. All right, moving down the list now, I've got a section here for using options and leverage to trade. Now, we can use Satori Finance on ZK Sync. So if you connect your wallet here, this is what the platform looks like. And you can trade either ETH or Bitcoin futures, and you can use leverage on this platform. Now, I've done another video where I actually walk through how to do this and the dangers of trading on leverage. So I'm not really gonna get super in depth with it here, but if you want to, you can place a couple of trades on this platform. Just make sure that you don't use too much leverage, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But basically how it works is you can either go long, meaning you think the price of the asset's gonna go up, or you can short the token, either Bitcoin or ETH, meaning you think the price is gonna go down. Then you choose how much leverage you want to use and how much collateral you want to put up, and then you place the order. And it stays open because it's a perpetual option until either you close it or it gets liquidated. Now, obviously, you don't want to get liquidated, so be careful when playing with these. I'm not really going to get into it here today, but that can be part of the checklist as well. Okay, next up on the checklist is an interesting one, and this I highly recommend returning to at least monthly, but you can do it very easily every week, and that is the Dmail protocol. Now, Dmail is an encrypted messaging software built on the blockchain, so you can send messages from your crypto wallet address to other crypto wallets or even to regular email addresses. So this is what the application looks like. When you connect, you can change the network. So make sure that you're on the correct network. In this case, I'm using ZK Sync. And then you can compose a message and you can send it to anybody that you want. So I could send a message to Vitalik.eth saying hi and saying thanks for Ethereum. And once you select who you're sending it to, it can be a wallet address or it can be a regular email address. You write your message, hit on the send button, and then it pops up in your wallet asking you to confirm a transaction. And it only costs a couple of cents So this is a pretty cheap and easy way to generate a transaction history. You can come back to Dmail regularly and just send a couple of random messages. And in fact, if you hit on this button up here that says points, they have a point system where if you complete certain tasks, like sending messages on many different chains, then you can get points from Dmail. And it's possible that they will also have an airdrop. Yes, it seems like everybody is using a points system and everybody is at least hinting at an airdrop, trying to get people to use their applications. Anyways, I do like Dmail because it's a really cheap and easy way to generate transaction history. Next, for Snapshot, this is in the governance section, and I don't really think there's much that we can do with Snapshot right now. If you're farming the layer 0 airdrop and you have Stargate tokens, then you can vote in the Stargate DAO, which is definitely a useful thing to do. But for ZK Sync, I'm not currently aware of anything that we can vote on. Next though, we have a whole section dedicated to NFTs. So there's a couple things that you can do here. You can actually use the exchanges like Element to buy and sell and list and bid on NFTs on the ZK Sync network. So once you select the network and connect your wallet, you can check out the different NFT collections and you can buy or sell NFTs if you want to. So let's say I'll buy this castle NFT right here and pay 21 cents and confirm the transaction in my wallet. I have now purchased an NFT on the Element platform. And I could go to my profile here and I can try to list an NFT. So let's say I want to list this one for sale for a price of 0.1 ETH for 1 month. So I'll throw a listing out there as well. And this way I've done a couple of different types of transactions on the platform. I purchased one and I listed one. Obviously you can't guarantee that you'll be able to sell an NFT because they're pretty illiquid, but we're again just trying to generate the maximum transaction volume and also the spread, the width, the different types of transactions that we're doing. So that is Element done. I could do the same on Zonic, which is another NFT platform, very similar to Element. I'm not gonna do it because it would be a little bit repetitive, but another interesting thing that you can do is create your own NFT collection. So I like OmniSea for this actually. This is a platform where you can potentially mine multiple different airdrops at once because OmniSea is powered by Layer 0. And you can connect a wallet and create an NFT collection. So hit on this button here that says create, then select what type of NFT collection you want to create. You can have a fixed supply, an unlimited edition, or it can be the same artwork with a limited edition. So let's just do an unlimited edition, let's say. Hit next, name the collection, write a description, and put in an end date and a royalty if you want to. You can also hit this button to make it a non-transferable or a soul-bound token. And you can add your social links if you want to. But since this is not a serious NFT collection, let's just hit next. And then we have to upload an image. So I've uploaded this image here of an airdrop farmer and then hit launch. Now, I'm doing it on ZK Sync, but again, you can do it on many different blockchains just by hitting up here and selecting which chain you want to do it on. So for farming multiple different layer 2 airdrops, I recommend launching an NFT collection on obviously as many as you can. I'm gonna hit launch here. It uploads the file to the interplanetary file system, and then we have to confirm a transaction in our wallet. So for the low price of 92 cents, it's actually gonna be less than that. I can launch my own NFT collection. Okay, so this is my profile. I've done a couple of these before. So let's hit on the NFT for the farmer. We have to actually set the schedule, hit drop scheduler and add new phase. And then let's just call this live mint, set the price to 0 and choose the start date for right now and the end date for sometime next month. And then you can select the number of NFTs that people can mint per wallet. So let's just say 1, then hit save phase and it will automatically make your NFT mint live. So now people can actually go find this NFT and mint it. And you can also pre-mint one if you want to your own wallet. So you can select the quantity and then you can hit mint and then it pops up asking you to confirm that you're minting an NFT to your own wallet. So those transactions were confirmed. So I launched this NFT collection, I set the mint to live, and I actually minted some to my own personal wallet. Check. Now you can do other similar activities on NFTs to me, Mint Fun, OmniHub. You can actually also bridge NFTs, which is another type of activity that you can do. So on Omni and actually also on Merkly, you can just mint and bridge generic NFTs. So there's 2 transactions. The first one mints the NFT for you, and then the second bridges the NFT for you. Now, there is a fee for doing that, and you can also choose which network you want to bridge it to. So this is going to Polygon, and it costs about 90 cents. So that went through, and now I have minted an NFT and bridged an NFT. I've bought and listed and created my own NFT collection. So every month or however often you want to come back to this, you can do a number of different types of transactions and activities in the NFT segment. Stick with me here because we're almost done. Now, when it comes to the social element, I am not currently aware of any applications or protocols that fall in this category that are really worthwhile interacting with on zkSync. However, you got Lens and Philan, which are both on the Polygon network, and Friendtech, which is Base. The final category of regularly occurring activities that you could do to farm these airdrops are wallets. So obviously I'm using the MetaMask wallet. Every time that I make a transaction, it's possible that that could be included in a MetaMask airdrop if they ever actually do one. But they also have built-in swap and bridge features with MetaMask. However, I don't love them because they're pretty expensive. They charge higher fees than if you use other dexes or other bridges. So it's possible you might want to do it once in a while just to tick that box basically, but it is a little bit more expensive than if you were to use other bridges. But there's other wallets as well that you can use for sure. Phantom is a good one, and there's been decent speculation that they'll have an airdrop at some point. You can use Phantom for both Ethereum and Solana. Zerion is a cool app where you can actually track your transaction history and your wallet balances across multiple different layer 2s all at once. So this is a useful tool for seeing, oh, okay, I have some assets on Linea, but also ETH mainnet, zkSync, Base, Arbitrum, etc. And if you want to use the Zerion wallet, they also have built-in swap and bridge features that could potentially qualify you for a Zerion airdrop if that happens. I should say that some of these airdrops in the dApp section are speculative. It's doubtful that every single one of these will release a token. Some of them probably will, however, and zkSync, the L2, absolutely 100% will. So by doing all of these things, we are establishing that on-chain transaction history. Now down in the bottom here, there's also a list of one-time activities that you can do to increase your chances of getting an airdrop. So with zkSync, there's the ZK name service, and you can register a .zk domain if you have the funds and you're willing to do that. So for example, I registered kryptocove.sk and set it as my primary wallet address. That's not something that I need to come back and do monthly. That's just a one-time activity, and when you do that, it's another check. The Gitcoin passport is another really good one to do across all airdrops and all protocols and all L2s, because if you get a Gitcoin passport with a humanity score above a threshold of 20, well, that can identify you as a unique human user and make sure that you don't get excluded from airdrops for being a bot or a Sybil. Now, it can be hard to get to that score if your wallet address is brand new and you don't have much transaction history. And so that's why with this wallet, I still only have a score of 16 because I just started making tutorials with this wallet a couple of months ago. But if you have a longer established history and you're willing to connect different social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, etc., then you can pretty easily get your score above 20 with a Gitcoin passport. And that is another one-time activity to do, and you don't have to come back to it again. The rest of these are for ETH staking on mainnet, except for this last one, which is safe. And I recommend that on each L2, you establish a safe multi-sig wallet and sign at least one transaction with it. And what that means is you create a new wallet with Safe, and then you have multiple input wallets that have to sign every transaction in order for it to go through. So you can use 2, 3, 4, 5, however many wallets you want to, and you can set the threshold of how many signatures you have to do to make the transaction go through. I've got a completely separate video on how you can set up a safe wallet and use it as a multi-sig. But in previous airdrops, I think it was either Optimism or Arbitrum, one of the qualifiers or multipliers that they had was signing multi-sig transactions. So I recommend doing this at least once on every L2 with each wallet that you're trying to farm. Whew. So yeah, that is it. That is the workflow. And again, at this point, if I was happy with what I've done on zkSync, I would go back to a bridge, compile my assets, and then bridge them to the next network and continue. So if we recap what we have done, we've got bridging, we've got swapping, we've got liquidity provision, we've loaned out assets, we have borrowed assets, we have deployed smart contracts and interacted with them. We created a token. We minted and burned tokens. We sent encrypted email messages with our crypto wallet. We minted and bridged an NFT. We created a completely new NFT collection and set that to live. And we also bought and traded an NFT on Element. And if you do some version of this, you don't have to hit a check mark in every single row, but if you do some version of this regularly until the airdrop is actually announced, I can pretty much guarantee that you'll get a decently large airdrop, and it won't actually cost you that much money unless you lose money trading on leverage. But I spent a few dollars in transaction fees to complete this whole checklist. Then I bridge to the next layer 2 and hope that I get a much larger airdrop than what I've spent in gas fees. And the final thing I'll say here is that obviously the more money that you have to allocate to this, the better. If you're doing small transactions with a few dollars here and there, you're creating your transaction volume, but not the value of the transactions. And so if you're transacting hundreds or thousands of dollars, that is going to be preferable for an airdrop. You'll probably earn more. It obviously just depends on how much capital you have to allocate to this. But you can see if I look in my MetaMask transaction history, we've done quite a lot here today in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So yeah, hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. Good luck out there, and always remember that there's risks associated with all of these. Make sure that you know what you're doing and that you're comfortable with the risks, and do your own research. And hopefully you qualify for some solid airdrops in 2024 and beyond. If you want to see a Solana workflow checklist just like this, I'll be releasing that at some point very shortly, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.